Hi friends, welcome to my space. My name is Ashley and you found me. I felt like a couple of weeks ago the question came to me of what is the world missing that I can humbly bring to it? And so this is my practice. I am a teacher in training, and my intent is to teach you systems that I've learned, and as I articulate them, they become my own. And something that you share and that you give away, it's not yours until you own it. So this is this process. Welcome to it. I was thinking about when we do any self work, what is the root intention behind it? Maybe we say that we want to know ourselves. Who am I? What am I here to do? What's my purpose? Yada, yada. But perhaps the question that we're trying to answer or the achievement we're trying to reach is, am I proud of myself? And can I be proud of myself? When you think about being in your purpose and these sort of things, they are so that you can hopefully find a sense of pride, feeling like you're a part of something bigger or contributing, that kind of lives in a pride like category. Most recently, my experience with pride and being proud of myself came from the deep despair of I'm tired of carrying around this guilt and shame. And I could tell you what the name of it is and where did it come from, but it doesn't necessarily matter. I don't want it anymore. So, if it's a balancing game, like how much more proud moments can I start adding to my so-called tip jar and start to overbalance and turn the feeling that I have of guilt and shame? I think about if we want to make ourselves proud, or if we're proud of, if I were to say that I'm proud of somebody, it's usually I'm proud of somebody who's overcoming a challenge or has grown or met an achievement, or just to even say that I'm proud of someone usually also means that they're pretty consistent and honest. And honesty is consistency, something that you do in a very truthful manner, something that you can expect. You know their authenticity. You can be proud of yourself and other people when you know who they are. You wouldn't necessarily be proud to say you knew somebody who was accused and verified not a great person. So when we think to ourselves that we're struggling with our own personal pride, usually it's shame and guilt that's coming through and telling us that we are a person that we shouldn't be proud of. And like if somebody knew what we actually did or who we actually were, then they wouldn't want to be a friend. They would know that we were unlovable in these very human experiences that we have. I think that going about the work from that perspective feels really good, because if you can find what you are proud about in yourself and in your life, you could start building upon it. And equally, when you find what is going on in your life and your behavior that you're not really proud of, and the things that are having a lot more impact on you just very unconsciously, you could clean those out. And just doing the work of cleaning it out and becoming aware and observing yourself is something to be proud of. You start to notice many ways in your life being affected by something that's just, how can I be more proud of myself? And if you really are looking at it from the point of view of what do I think is missing in the world, it's not necessarily shadow work. It's just like truth. It's the truth about these things that you are engaging with, and maybe it's not exactly the version of yourself that you think that you are. For instance, this is going to be like a little bit hurtful and honest, but the whole channel is about sex, money, and death. And we'll go death first. Sometimes when somebody dies, we've got like this social media world that like you could really put on that you are just absolutely devastated that somebody has died and that you loved them so much and cherished them and these sort of things. But if the truth was really revealed within yourself, that's not the relationship that you had. So there's just like some dishonesty there, and like you could really feel a lot of guilt and shame, usually more so when a death comes in, because it really puts a lot of truth on what that relationship was, who you are, who you'll be without this person. Same thing with money. Money is a huge shame and guilt trigger for people because of the way that we spend our money technically says a lot about who we are. The way that we manage our money says a lot about how the way that we manage ourselves. Everything with money, death, and sex have this flip mirror experience for you. So if you want to be more proud of yourself with money, you would probably have a projection in your mind where you're like, oh, the people who should be proud of themselves with money are like, you know, they've got $100,000 and they've got like an 800 credit score and like blah, blah, blah. But for me, personally, when I'm proud of my money, I'm proud that I'm able to live the lifestyle that I really, really want within the means of the living that I can create while still living a life. That's very convoluted, right? Like I don't work that much, but I don't make that much money. But because I prioritize and what I value is living a life of like free time and experience. So it's kind of funny sometimes when that comes up because once upon a time I was really money driven and I had money and I was really proud of the fact that I was able to do that for myself. So now when I talk to people and they're kind of like, everybody's living this like, I'm busy, rat race life. And people are kind of like, what did you do today? And sometimes I just like went on a really long hike or a bike ride or rollerblading or yoga, read a book, fucked myself in the afternoon. Nothing really that society will say that they would be proud of me for. And so that guilt and shame of being different than the society is something that I have to start to outweigh because I feel really proud of myself. That if you're working to have more free time and the idea is to have time, then when you have time, be grateful for it. So I feel really proud that I'm able to create this within myself, this peace of knowing that like this is the life that I wanted regardless of how much money I have. If I keep working really hard 7 days a week to get a lot of money, I'm going to get further away from the life that I have now, for instance. So the way that we deal with our money and the way that we organize it will really show like how am I proud of myself for the way that I use the resources and I'm proud of myself the way that I use my time. That self-observation and being really honest with yourself brings you directly to the answer. And if you're struggling still with feeling really proud of yourself and you get the answer, you can be really proud of yourself for doing something about it. Yeah. So sex is another one, right? We have a lot of guilt and shame around our sex, around our body, around our preferences, around our fantasies, around our desires, our pleasures. And it's not necessarily that sex will give you pride, but it's this other energy you get when you take the shame and guilt away from sex and just being proud for who you are when you showed up in that moment. It's super vulnerable. Being proud that you were able to stay present, being proud you were able to ask for what you wanted, or the opposite, feeling shame because you weren't able to ask for what you want, or feeling shame for being taken advantage of. And maybe it's not the extremist version of being taken advantage of, but it's you didn't feel comfortable enough saying no. And so when you come to these respects of proud and shame and guilt around sex and money, and death is another one because of the way that we feel about death, to re-add to that, is how we feel about life. So if we're feeling in this like fear and guilt and we're sort of like marching to this experience that death is coming and are we doing enough with our life? Like that is a pressure that would be really challenging to feel really proud of yourself for. If you never are reaching this resting point, then like the pride that you'll feel in your life, the pride when you reach death, will be a little bit convoluted. Like maybe you'll feel like you should have rested a little bit more with your family, but instead you were racing to like get every ounce of life out, which that is 100% your story. So you have to find out if that's true or not. There's points in my life with, if I was going to talk about like human design and gene keys, I could talk about it a lot, but in essence, what it says for my own personal line 6 is I've got 3 breaks of life, where it's like the first part of life is like experimental, the second part of life is like licking my wounds from being experimental, and the third part of life is teaching all the lessons that I learned in these things. So it's definitely not to say that it's not your path or somebody else's path to find this trial and error experience. Excuse me, there's a dog. Amigo, I feel like you're doing something mischievous. Thank you. When you have these experiences of like really challenging yourself and coming outside of the box, and then finding like, oh, maybe I didn't mean to do that. There's some parts where it's like, you could feel ashamed for trying something, or you could feel really proud of yourself for trying something. And so it's up to you how you feel at the end of your life, and like if you're living for the end of your life, which we usually all are. And I would say that if a lot of people are living their life to arrive safely to death, I really care mostly that like I arrived to death proud. And one time my sister had said to me, I'm 37 years old and I don't have any children. And she said that if I don't have a kid, I will feel like I missed out, or that I will feel incomplete. And I jokingly, but also now truthfully said this was years ago, 10 years ago maybe. And I was like, I'll feel more proud if I had a passport full of stamps. And each person is going to have an idea of what makes them feel proud. And then they're going to have a knowing, a wisdom of what makes them feel proud. I thought once before maybe it would make me feel proud if I was acclaimed at something and significant at something, and like amuse and these sort of things. Now I find that being proud of myself is completely different. And because I've experienced and tried to reach these things, when you get to any of these experiences, if you're really honest with yourself, you could tell if you feel good or not about it. What does it say? Do the means justify the ends? So sometimes you have this very long, hard experience to reach something that you think that you want, and then you realize it's not actually what you want. If you've ever been in an experience where, well, sometimes we're just chasing money our whole entire lives, but like some of us actually get money, and then when you get money, you realize that like, oh shit, this was not what I thought it was. Like somebody definitely lied to me, and it doesn't give me any happiness and joy. Then you realize, wow, the proud feeling and the happiness and joy came from trying to reach a goal, came from overcoming each day and making the choice consecutively. The pride came from acknowledging when I made a mistake and when I was able to correct it. And all of this ties into self-observation, because if the Bible says that we are sinners, if you could translate it for yourself, but I read somewhere in a book that it was like loosely translated from Latin that it was just a mistake. So you don't have to beat yourself up and like crucify yourself for a mistake. You made a mistake. We've never been here before. We have no idea what we're doing. And so even to be in that space of I'm proud of myself because I've never done this before, and I'm actually doing a pretty good job, or at least like today I feel great about what I'm doing. Like I have no idea what I'm doing, and yet somehow I fed myself today. I moved my body, the sunshine. Like the pride I have now comes from the ability to, not that the circumstances around me are yes or no, but can I see the circumstances around me as it doesn't matter? Like I am unshakable on the inside for the most part. I'm still human. I'm still working these things. Some things really do come in and shake me for like a week or something, but honestly, I'm really proud of myself. And I think that it's important to add this as well, is self-work doesn't necessarily have a way to measure it. So the best way I could measure any of the work that I do is like once upon a time when I was dealing with a family issue, for instance, that family issue with a conflict or conversation or the wrong thing taken from something said differently could last a month or more, just really ruminating on it and rehearsing how I would have dealt with it differently, and just, maybe even being angry at the person and distancing and letting it affect other parts of my relationship. Whereas now, if it takes a day, that's a huge thing to be proud of. If it takes a week, it's still worth being proud of. But the reality is, with self-observation and tools that I feel like I've been practicing, I'm really proud of myself that I could bring these tools up when they're ready and have a lot less time being stuck in something that once used to take me down completely. So my encouragement, curiosity, my thought experiment, my invitation, my contemplation, articulation is to realize that if we're going to be doing any work on ourselves and we want to be proud of ourselves and like be proud of ourselves for the true authentic version of ourselves that we really are. And so being really honest and actually like being the investigator to find out who we are and root out all of the bullshit that's not us, that alone provides pride and confidence and competence beyond anything. Like you could do the work and therapy, that's something to be proud about. You could do the work that any other healing experience says to do, sound bowls, yoga, ecstatic dance, tantra, all of it. Be proud of yourself that you're attempting to expand the barriers of this experience that you were given, and then somebody else put the limitations on it. Be proud of yourself for breaking out of that. Be proud of yourself for getting curious. Be proud of yourself for asking questions. I think that the most important thing that we remain as in this human experience is curious. We don't know. We've never been here before. And so when you learn something new, you get a sense of pride. Take on a sense of pride of learning something new about a topic, that you've never necessarily given the time and value to. And then realize what space pride would create inside of you and what would be created out of it. Thank you for being in my space. Have a beautiful day.